What's going on, everyone? It's Murph. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Dark Dimension and coming at it as a free-to-play player early on in the game. As you know, earlier this week we actually hit level 70 and unlocked the Dark Dimension 2 for the first time, and I actually cleared it. Well, I would have cleared it within the first 24 hours of it, but I ran out of time before I had to go to bed for work the next day, but was able to proceed all the way through that yesterday. No issues, cleared it, and today we're ready to go back in for our second round. I'm going to talk to you guys kind of about strategies to build for Dark Dimension. We'll talk about both addressing it kind of from the meta and the tier list that we've already gone through in other videos to kind of match up with what we've been farming already. And then we'll talk about just kind of like in general, like Dark Dimension has its own meta that has teams and characters that people typically do build and use for certain areas of Dark Dimension, but they don't necessarily line up with the way that we're farming, since the way I'm presenting most of these videos is pursuing strictly Apocalypse right now. All right, so first off, we've got 5 separate difficulties in Dark Dimension, 1 through 5, obviously. Now, they each require different things in order to complete them. So as you see here, Dark Dimension 1 requires 6-star characters. Now, if you're leveling up at a fair pace, you're more than likely, from what's happened to me on both of my accounts and from what I've kind of gained just speaking with other alliance mates, you're probably going to unlock Dark Dimension 2 before you hit unlock Dark Dimension 1. And that's just because it's easier to get to level 70 and hit gear 13 on characters as you're stocking up gear rating while you're leveling up, as it is to farm 6-star characters. So if we go into my account real quick, I'll show you kind of where I'm at. If we go down here and sort by fucking offers out of here, you sort by star rank, right? I'm almost ready for Dark Dimension 1, but I'm not quite yet. So as you can see, Hulk is 3 shards away from 6 stars, and we've got Spider-Man Miles at 6 stars. So that's 2 characters, right? One's just a hair, a hair away. Let's get past these favorite characters here that I'm kind of working on slowly. And yeah, aside from that, we've got Gamora at 7 stars and M'Baku at 6 stars. Our next closest is going to be Wolverine, who's close to 6 stars as well, so that would probably be our 5th. We might be able to get a Dark Dimension 6 tomorrow with kind of a patched together shit roster. We'll see. But yeah, and as you can see, I hit level 70 this week, and I've got a whole slew of different characters I can already use for my second run of Dark Dimension. And for whatever it's worth, about 2/3 of these I got to gear 13 before I completed my first run of Dark Dimension 1. So of course, once you complete these Dark Dimensions, you get a shit ton of gear that will contribute to your roster. So now that we've talked about kind of the difficulties, well, we haven't finished yet, because Dark Dimension 2 requires gear 13, which means you have to be level 70. Dark Dimension 3 requires gear 14, which means level 75. Dark Dimension 4 requires gear 15, level 80. Dark Dimension 5 requires gear 16 and level 85. Now, there's no Dark Dimension 6 yet, and at first people kind of assume that these Horseman sagas were going to be a substitute for Dark Dimension 6, but I believe it was actually talked about. I don't think it was in a blog post, but I want to say it was in one of the content creator discords or Reddit or somewhere, that Dark Dimension 6 is actually going to be coming at some point soon. So, I mean, going off the rest of this, it's fair to assume that you have to be level 90 and gear 17 in order to complete that. But let's talk about rewards. So what do you get out of Dark Dimensions? So really the big thing that you're going to get is you get 2 separate clears on each difficulty. So the first run, you're going to get random full complete items and a bunch of random, like I forget what they call these. They're not uniques, but they are like the additional items you need to craft pieces. Yeah, glyphs, whatever. I forget what they're called. But your second run, you're also going to get rewards as well for a second clear, and you're going to get more items than your first time around. And that's stays consistent all the way through these. So for this is all gear 13 gear you're going to get for Dark Dimension 1 and Dark Dimension 2. Now, Dark Dimension 3 through 5, you're going to get your gear 14, 15, and 16 pieces, you know, the same way it's required for those Dark Dimensions. Now, also, as you can see, we've got Ultron here, Ultimus here, Doctor Doom here, and Dormammu here. So those characters are all unlocked on completion of Dark Dimension. So you'll unlock them at 4 or 5 stars after your first run, along with all that gear. And then your second run, you'll actually get them at 7 stars. So just for whatever that's worth. Anyways, so once you push past Dark Dimension 1, there are other requirements for Dark Dimension 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's go ahead and hop into Dark Dimension 2 real quick. So there's nothing else in here. As you can see, all of these nodes, there's no additional requirements on them for Dark Dimension 2. The same goes for Dark Dimension 1. I may have misspoke when I said that a minute ago, but Dark Dimension 1 and 2, there's no other requirement other than the 6-star or the Gear 13 requirements already put on them. Now, if we hop into Dark Dimension 3 here, you will see these first few nodes. I believe it's the first 4. Yeah, so the first 4 nodes, they have no additional requirements. But once we look at node 5 here, you'll see here that it requires global characters. You can only use characters with the global trait for missions 5 through 8. Missions 9 through 12, you can only use cosmic characters. And missions 13 through 16, you can only use city characters. So that means that in addition to the gear tier 14 for Dark Dimension 3, you also have to have separate rosters for global, city, and cosmic. Now if we hop over to Dark Dimension 4, Dark Dimension 4 and 5 follow the same requirements. However, they're ordered a bit differently, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But again, your first few nodes are all going to be no requirements here. You can see it's just gear 15. Once you get into mission 4, you need global characters, but as you can see here, it's non-legendary global characters. And that's because this also requires the same as Dark Dimension 3, your global, city, and cosmic, but this time it's all non-legendary, and the reason for that is because your last few nodes are all going to require legendary characters with no stipulation whether it's global, city, or cosmic. The same goes for Dark Dimension 5, but it's ordered differently. So what that means is you might end up building a roster for for Dark Dimension 1 that you're not going to use for Dark Dimension 2. And if you just focus on building for Dark Dimension 2, you might not have enough characters of global, city, and cosmic in order to clear Dark Dimension 3. If you build for Dark Dimension 3, building those global, city, and cosmic traits, you might not be focusing on building them without legendaries, which means you might not be prepped for 4. So it's really important once you want to actually push Dark Dimension, especially if you want to disregard this Apocalypse meta and just build your account around Dark Dimension, which was kind of the meta previous to Apocalypse and all these Horsemen and Sagas coming out. If you want to specifically build for Dark Dimension and disregard the entire Apocalypse sagas, you really want to take a look at the requirements for Dark Dimension 4 and 5 and kind of plan out how you want to build your teams as early as possible. That way you're not wasting gear and resources building characters for Dark Dimension 1, 2, and 3 that you're not going to take it in Dark Dimension 4 and 5. So, as with some of my videos I did last week, we actually made a handy dandy spreadsheet to follow this. So this is just kind of what we went over just now. Dark Dimension 1 and its requirements, Dark Dimension 2 and the requirements, Dark Dimension 3 and its requirements, Dark Dimension 4 and 5. So if we look at this, we can kind of look through global characters and teams and kind of start planning our runs before that. So some interesting things to note, based on the tier list that I made and put out in an earlier video, if you guys decide to follow that, what we talked about are our priorities are Scourge teams, raid teams, and then our Horseman teams. So we need our raid teams in order to clear raids, not be sandbaggers in our guilds, or alliances, don't be a sandbagger, and to farm up gear so we can build out the rest of our roster. We need Scourge teams so we can unlock our Horsemen, and we need our Horseman teams so we can complete sagas in order to unlock Apocalypse. So the Horseman teams are going to be required at gear 15 and eventually gear 17 at a max, which means if we're following these max recommended gear investments on these teams, you can use your Horseman teams, invest in them whatever, you can run them all in whatever Dark Dimensions you want, because eventually you're going to have to get them to gear 17, and currently the highest requirement for Dark Dimension is gear 16. When we talk about our raid teams, we kind of want to aim them for around the gear 14 to 15 area, and that's to make sure that we can start clearing early dooms And as you know, if you decide to move up to a higher alliance, or your alliance starts pushing higher content, higher difficulty dooms, then you can start looking at, pushing your raid teams to gear 16 and higher. But right now we're looking at gear 14 to 15. And there are Scourge teams, we really want to gear them to around 14 and then leave them there. And if you choose to invest further, go for it. But following that, with our Horseman teams topping out at 17, our raid teams topping out at 15, and our Scourge teams topping out at 14, these are kind of what we're going to look at for these global, city, cosmic, and legendary nodes. So for global, first off, we've got Darkhold. Now, some notes on Darkhold. Doctor Strange Heartless actually can't be used with the team in your global nodes because he carries a cosmic trait. He's the only character on that team that carries a cosmic trait. So basically, you're running 4 out of 5 if you choose to run them in the earlier Dark Dimensions. You will also lose access to using Morgan Le Fay at Dark Dimension 4 because she carries a legendary trait as she's one of the Horsemen. So essentially, once you push into Dark Dimension 4 and 5, that leaves you with Wong, Agatha, and Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch being the most useless character on the team, and pretty much every other game mode aside from just using them in your sagas, she's replaced with another character. So really, if you want to build Darkhold for your global node specifically, you're kind of left with Wong and Agatha. But good news, they're fucking powerhouses and they will destroy Dark Dimension. Next up, another team to look at, we're going to talk about the Gamma team. Now, this is kind of preemptive, but I'm assuming in the future this is going to be a very viable team for global. Now, 3 out of 5 of the characters are not available yet. She-Hulk also carries a city tag, so that really leaves you with Hulk, Abomination, and Brawn for your global nodes, because you will also lose Red Hulk at Dark Dimension 4 the same way you lose Morgan Le Fay. And that's also assuming that he has a global tag, because he's not currently in the game yet. Or maybe he is. I don't remember. I know they added Brawn and Abomination in, but I don't recall if they added Red Hulk in. I didn't check. Lazy content, as always. Now, the next team we're going to look at for global is going to actually be Unlimited X-Men. So, Unlimited X-Men, you're going to lose Rogue at Dark Dimension 4 because she's also a Horseman and she's legendary as well. However, before that, in your Dark Dimension 3 for your runs, I've heard feedback the same as Wong and Agatha that Rogue is an absolute fucking powerhouse in Dark Dimension. And that also makes her, like, you really want to use her for your legendary nodes later on. We'll get into that. Now, aside from this, I know personally on my main, I'm still running through Dark Dimension 3 right now, and my global team is an absolute fucking mess. I finally got 3 of the Bionic Avengers up, and I'm getting a little more traction using that. But aside from that, I'm using them along with Wolverine and Gambit. And I can tell you right now, Gambit on its own, he's really not viable for global. He doesn't do a whole lot. It's kind of nice when you can't clear the nodes and the enemy's just roundhouse attacking you turn after turn after turn, and you do get that passive hit from Gambit on the enemy characters, but it's really not doing much damage. I haven't used Sunfire, Phantom X, or Dazzler yet. It's probably a bit more viable if you're able to use 4 out of the 5 characters, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in it. However, if you want to be efficient and strictly only use Horseman teams and Scourge teams in order to clear your Dark Dimensions, this is a very viable, efficient way for you to do it. However, it might take some time because they're probably not, like while it might be efficient gear and investment wise, it's probably not going to be efficient time wise. It's not going to be easy to clear it. Next up is Secret Avengers. Now, Secret Avengers I've got in bold here, and that's just because they're kind of the standard meta right now for clearing Dark Dimensions on global nodes. And some notes is typically Secret Avengers for your skill raid team. Your raid teams are generally going to translate over to Dark Dimension very, very well because, again, you're dealing with a high volume of enemies per mission, and the synergy that you get in raid, you don't necessarily get all of it in Dark Dimension because it's not specific raid content, and most of these raid teams have specific raid passives and abilities. But a lot of the other synergies that aren't specific to raid that kind of help them function, whether it's providing ability energy to people or having shorter cooldown rates in order for you to use multiple abilities kind of back to back, these do translate over to Dark Dimension. So Secret Avengers is a very viable team for global. However, when you talk about that raid composition, you're typically running Kestrel and Shang-Chi with them. And Kestrel, of course, carries a cosmic trait, and Shang-Chi carries a city trait. So really you're left with Maria Hill, Captain America, Sam, and Sharon Carter, which is still a great team to build around. You're just going to have to find a couple other characters to plug and play with them. And next up is kind of the same deal with Astonishing X-Men. It's another raid team. However, you're going to lose Jubilee after Dark Dimension 4 because she is legendary. And you're also going to not have availability to Bishop because he is a cosmic character. So again, that leaves you with Kitty Pryde, Iceman, and Beast, which isn't the strongest core, so you're really going to find another tank and probably like a high damage character to plug in there. Now, the next team I'm very, very interested in seeing, actually, and this will probably be my main focus on this account as I build it and push into level 75 and Dark Dimension 3. But Bionic Avengers all carry the global tag. There are no legendary characters that are going to get pulled from this team, and it's a full raid team. So they're going to synergize very, very well together. And I'm very interested in seeing how strong they are for using them strictly for your global Dark Dimensions, and would highly recommend building them for them. Another team that is going to be very viable for Dark Dimension as well is your Weapon X team if you unlock Omega Red. Now, Omega Red is also legendary, so you lose him at Dark Dimension 4. But, I mean, the team's fucking phenomenal. The main drawback, for me at least, is that it doesn't follow my farming priority. And while I am working to unlock Omega Red on this account, I don't know if I'm going to be investing in it high enough early on to be able to clear Dark Dimension 4 and 5. Another couple teams I just kind of threw in here are Wakanda and Wave 1 Avengers. Wave 1 Avengers I really would not recommend unless you're running it for like Dark Dimension 1, maybe 2 if you decide to Gear 13 them. You can run, I mean, Thor, Iron Man, and Hulk all got reworks, and we're going to want to take those 3 characters up to Gear 13 and higher for our raid teams, for our Scourge teams, and for our Horseman teams. But the rest of the characters you have access to, like Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Captain America, really have no place in the meta, and they're not worth investing in, so I really wouldn't recommend it. And Wakanda, I kind of plan on stopping them at Gear 13 once I get them up to 13 for my Cosmic Crucible team. But if you want to invest in that Gear 14, then you can use them to push Dark Dimension 3, but I really wouldn't recommend right now investing in more. And at the bottom here, you can kind of see an example team that I hashed together using these characters. So like, for example, Sharon Carter, Captain America, Sam, and Maria Hill for your Secret Avengers. You could run them with Wong and Agatha. Just, I don't know, just kind of threw something together. So that covers it for global. Next up, we're going to talk about Cosmic. And now Cosmic, the first character I have up here, the only reason he's all the way up here and he's tagged red is because Doctor Strange Heartless follows a Horseman team. We're going to eventually want to get him to Gear 17, so it bears, you know, reason that we should use him for Dark Dimension because we're already going to have him built for it. So you want to use him, and Cosmic is kind of a shit show where there's really no like full standard team with the way that I'm building my teams and the way I'm kind of pursuing the Apocalypse meta, because most of these characters have nothing to do with the Apocalypse meta. So you're essentially going to have to build like certain characters high enough to clear these Dark Dimensions and invest gear in them that you'd otherwise invest in other characters for your Scourges and for your Horseman teams. But the other team is Eternals, and they're still a very, very meta team. However, there's no way to farm them still, and you can build them as high as you want. There's really no drawback from building them to Gear 16, 17. They're still fucking amazing. They're my #1 recommendation for Cosmic. Next up, we've got Heroes Guardians, and again, this is a Scourge team, so you kind of want to stop them at Gear 14, so you might be able to use them for, you know, your Dark Dimension 3. But I don't have a whole lot of faith in them. They've got pretty bad sustain as far as ability cooldowns. They're a slow team, so when you go to boot that mission up, you're going to take a lot of damage before you get a turn in, and they're fairly squishy too. So the team's kind of almost built around losing one character, and then it gets sacrificed and it buffs the rest of the team from the way I've seen it so far. And that's just not very viable for Dark Dimension, because the whole idea is that you're clearing like 20 to 30 character waves every mission, and you really need to be able to sustain and keep yourself healed and healthy and be able to control and just one by one pick off these characters. And I said control, and one thing that as Guardians do have is control between all the stuns and the disrupts and the ability blocks. They're not too bad, but I mean, I could see you going into a Dark Dimension mission and losing Thor right off the bat and then all of a sudden you're fucked because you don't have that AoE spam, you don't have a whole lot of damage output, and then it just sucks. You're either gonna have to reset or just, you know, pack it in for tomorrow. And on my main, I'm actually going to be running Dark Dimension 3 Cosmic fairly soon with a combination of the Eternals and Heroes Guardians. So I'll definitely, you know, bring an update to this channel at some point and kind of give some feedback on that when I actually do have experience in using them. But another team that we can run is going to be Infinity Watch. Now, they're also a great option for Cosmic. And what you're going to see from here on down the list, like I mentioned a little bit ago, is that most of these other options are going to be deviating from our kind of planned farming and building strategy. So if you have access to Infinity Watch and you have them built, great, you can use them. And another note is that Adam Warlock is a legendary character, so you will lose him after Dark Dimension 4. And the rest of these characters are more or less kind of plug and play characters for the rest of this team. So Deathpool and Kestrel are both great options. They're both great plug and play characters. They will deviate from our build list a little bit, but they're pretty typical builds for Dark Dimension Cosmic characters. Silver Surfer is decent. I would definitely put him in a tier kind of below Deathpool and Kestrel. And Black Order is another great option. I'd say it's on par with Infinity Watch, but it heavily deviates from our tier list. And Star-Lord T'Challa, America Chavez, I put in here just because Star-Lord T'Challa I think could be very interesting if you decide to go for like a Ravagers build, but that's a very, very niche build and has nothing to do with the way that I'm building this account. But if you decide to go that route, more power to you. And America Chavez we could use for Dark Dimension 3 because we're going to be building our Young Avengers to Gear 14 at least. But she's standalone, and I mean, one of her 3 abilities it synergizes based off how many other Young Avengers you can bring onto the team. She's the only one available for Cosmic, so you know you really only have her Dispel, and then just, you know, basic damage on top of that. And then kind of an example team to put together here, you could run like Doctor Strange Heartless, and then Icarus and Cersei, that gives you 3, and then you can run Gamora, Nebula, or Deathpool and Kestrel, or like I said, this is going to be kind of a just fucking whatever you have, hash it together and just get it done. So next up we'll talk about City. And City, I'll kind of show you, I'll play through a mission or two once we get through the rest of this, but I'll tell you right now, She-Hulk's up here only because, again, just like Doctor Strange Heartless, Gear 17 is going to be required at some point for the Horseman Sagas. So if you're going to gear up that high, you can use her. But all 5 Web Warriors all count towards City, and it's fucking insane how good this team runs in Dark Dimension. Like, I cleared the entire Dark Dimension 2 on auto with all my Web Warriors at Gear 13 and probably about half their T4s invested in. And I assume the same probably goes for the higher levels too. So honestly, if you want just the easiest way out of City, just build your Web Warriors for it and push. Some other teams to mention here, we got Young Avengers, but we're going to have no Echo because she carries a global tag. We're going to have no Kate Bishop because she also carries a global tag. We're going to have no America Chavez because she carries Cosmic. So you're only going to have Miles Morales if you want to use him. He doesn't synergize all that well with Young Avengers, but he carries the tag. You're going to have Squirrel Girl, and you're going to have Miss Marvel. Now, 2 other characters that you could run too that are very, very meta when it comes to Dark Dimension are Cloak and Dagger. They synergize fantastically well. They deal a ton of damage, a ton of debuff spam, blinds. They're great. I can't speak enough about them. I'm probably not going to run them just because, again, these characters kind of deviate from my plan on how to build this account. But I'm sure... I mean, you can't go wrong with building them, and they also count towards your Mystic Raid team too, so you get kind of double down investment on that. Honorable mentions go for Symbiotes. They're basically your Web Warriors, you know, 1.0. If Web Warriors were 2.0, they're the beta version of Web Warriors, as I've said. And Heroes for Hire, I wouldn't run the whole team, but Shang-Chi himself is fucking phenomenal. And if you decide to run any of these other teams other than Web Warriors, and you're looking for like an additional character to plug and play with it, put Shang-Chi in. He's fucking amazing. I can't speak enough about him. Now, when it comes to legendaries, it's kind of cut and dry, especially with the way that I'm building this account. And since all your horsemen are going to be required at Gear 17 to finish off the Apocalypse sagas, I mean, you can't go wrong with running Morgan Le Fay, Rogue, Red Hulk, and whoever the Death Horseman is eventually. But you might not want to run that, or you might not be pursuing the Apocalypse meta all that hard. So some other options you have Jubilee and Iron Man, they're both part of your raid team, so you're going to want to build them anyways. And they're both great characters. Although Iron Man might not synergize with a whole lot of other characters, Jubilee is pretty good with debuff spams, and Iron Man is really good at extending the duration of those debuffs, so there's a little bit of synergy there at least. And then some other characters, I mean, Omega Red is fucking phenomenal. He destroys Dark Dimension, so if you got him, you can use him. Adam Warlock is a fairly good option, and Shuri as well. I put Ebony Maw and Phoenix on here too, but I haven't even unlocked them on my main yet, so I can't speak to how well they are, and I'm not sure if they really synergize with the other characters on this list. But that kind of covers it for options on what to build. So, I mean, I don't throw in a whole lot of information and a whole lot of opinions at you right now, but the main thing is just you need to decide what you want to do, decide it early on, and invest in these characters, so that way, once you hit level 70, once at level 75, you can clear Dark Dimension once you get to it. If you don't, there's a whole lot of gear that you're missing out on that's going to help you grow your account faster, and I do preach patience with this game, and there's no reason to assume that, you know, the day you hit level 70 you can clear Dark Dimension 2, or the day you hit level 80 you can clear Dark Dimension 4, or whatever. But, you know, it is nice to be able to do that and be able to, you know, you hit that level, you gear your characters up, and then you clear Dark Dimension, and then all of a sudden you have a whole slew of extra gear to throw on the rest of your roster. It's great. But if you don't feel like really pushing for that, you don't have to. There's nothing wrong with waiting and being patient. But let's go ahead and hop into Dark Dimension 2, and I'll kind of put my money where my mouth is, where I'll show you how good Web Warriors is on here. Now, obviously, I know this isn't fucking game-breaking news that I'm giving you right now. Everybody knows that Web Warriors is a fucking amazing team. They're meta, and it's a very easy team now that they're all farmable for you to pursue early on to push for Dark Dimension. But, like, I'm telling you, I'm literally just going to open this, put it on auto, and then just keep flapping my gums and talk like a fucking moron for probably the next couple minutes, and we'll be clear. There we go. So yeah, we're getting some pretty good debuff spam already, as you can see. And Scarlet Spider's coming through and extending some of these debuffs. We're gonna get some more up here with Spider-Punk, and then Ghost Spider should come through probably on the next turn with their ultimate and just throw all these debuffs across everybody. As you can see, we're about one full rotation through everybody's attacks and abilities, and we haven't even really taken any damage yet. Sorry, my allergies. Oh, it's gonna be a problem with recording these videos, isn't it? So, yeah, like, while this is easy, it is time consuming because these characters still do take a lot of damage to take down. But I mean, you could literally throw this up on your phone, put it on auto, and go do the dishes or go cook some dinner. I mean, that's what I was doing the other night when I was doing Dark Dimension 2 in my first playthrough. I was doing laundry, I was making my bed, doing some dishes, tuning into some football, and just, yeah. Like, you can literally just put it on auto and watch it. I actually didn't lose any characters on autoing all of these until the final node, the Ultron boss on it, actually ended up taking out, I think it was OG Spider-Man, because he's still fairly squishy right now. He doesn't get his, like, reworked stat boost until you actually get him to level 75. So, like, right now, kind of the main thing to watch out for while you're playing through is actually keeping an eye on OG Spider-Man and making sure that he's good. And this is actually kind of scaring me right now that I'm just sitting here on auto because he's got a taunt, and that's not great. And all these other characters have blind on them, so they're not going to be healing him as much here. But he should be getting topped off shortly here. Yeah. I should probably take it off of Drax, start focusing on these other characters, but I really want Ghost Spider to be able to spread that debuff all the way across everybody. Why are we lagging so bad? Take it off auto for a second. Alright, I'm gonna change target to Dr. Strange Heartless here. So bad. Now, when I wasn't autoing this, I was really trying to make sure that you spread all these debuffs to everybody as much as possible. So here we go. We'll go ahead and spread all these debuffs from Drax to everybody else. If I didn't have that up, I'd definitely be targeting like Scarlet Spider and Spider-Man onto whoever didn't have defense down. And really what you want to do is make sure that as many characters as possible have defense down and speed down. The defense down is going to help you hit a little harder, and the speed down, whenever you get Scarlet Spider up with his ultimate, he's going to allow you to dispel buffs from everybody with the speed down. And then of course you want disrupt up on, you know, any characters that might have taunt or might be able to get a defense up or anything that's really going to slow down your progress here, because the name of the game with Dark Dimension here is just figuring out, you know, what characters are the biggest threat to you right now. So like if I look at this, Drax does nothing but taunt and keep me from attacking anybody else. So as long as he's got disrupt on him, I can fucking ignore him. Same goes for Kree Royal Guard. Iron Man, he's gonna do some damage output for sure, but my main target right now should actually probably be Baron Mordo, and that's just due to the heal blocks and the blinds that he can throw out in the team. So we'll get rid of him first. Scarlet Witch can actually heal the team here, and we'll probably target her next. See if we can get her down. It'd be nice if we get a chain to Iron Man here, because he's kind of my next target, him and Korath here. I am going to slow down Elektra, keep a little bit of damage from coming on the team. God damn, this lag. So I could AoE everybody, but I don't want to. I kind of want to save that for if I actually have to dispel any debuffs. The only buff on the board is this dodge up, and it's not going to dispel it because she doesn't have speed down on her. So let's just go ahead, take out Scarlet Witch. A good chain, got rid of the dodge. So now we got 2 Spider-Men up, 2 Koraths. Let's go ahead and try to take out these Koraths and then work on Spider-Man, because they are going to deal some damage on us. We'll start off on Spider-Man here to get some debuffs, and dodge, of course. Dodge is like the sweetest thing when you're running Web Warriors, and it's the most annoying thing when you're facing any of them, for sure. Just get rid of him real quick. Go ahead and throw heal block on everybody, get that AoE out. Also going to target Elektra with this so I can ensure the disrupt gets on her. Also going to hop on Korath and try to spread as much of these debuffs as possible. Alright, we're going on 32 minutes here, so I'm not going to take up 10 more minutes going through the rest of this Dark Dimension. So if you guys stuck around this long, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate all the feedback in the comments. If you guys, you know, agree, disagree, let me know in the comments. Let's start a conversation, some dialogue. If you guys have pushed through the later Dark Dimensions where I haven't pushed through, go ahead and give me some feedback on this and let me know. You know, a lot of this information I gave here is obviously very opinionated, and it's going through from the perspective of building for Apocalypse and trying to keep your roster as trim as possible while you're doing that, and not wasting, you know, gold, gear, ISOs, and everything else in characters that aren't going to help you get Apocalypse. So obviously that's going to mean that a lot of these characters and teams that I'm recommending aren't going to be meta for Dark Dimension. So if you think that it might not work, let me know. Let me know some suggestions of maybe trying to mix the 2 different perspectives together between actually building for like specifically Dark Dimension and still pursuing Apocalypse. But yeah, that's all I got for you tonight, guys. Tomorrow we're probably gonna be putting out a Doom campaign. Okay, yeah, we'll go through a bit of a Doom campaign video and talk about kind of different characters and teams we can build to progress through the Doom campaign. And until then, have a good night, everybody. Stay safe.